Teachers everywhere, welcome. There's so many podcasts out there. Which ones are the best teacher podcasts? Well, let me tell you my top 5. If you're looking for a podcast that is like an encyclopedia of cognitive science and you're following the journey of a person who has no idea about this and is interviewing experts in their field over time, then there's no better place than Mr. Barton's Maths podcast. A lot of cognitive science themes are discussed in expert detail. He gets amazing hosts who are expert in their field. He is such a good host. He asks the right questions. He asks the right follow-up questions. And it just feels really natural and interesting to listen to. There is a heavy maths element. So if you're not a maths teacher, it can feel a bit off-putting at times. I'm not a maths teacher, but there are definitely podcasts that aren't heavily maths focused. But if that maths does get a bit too annoying, which it can do for myself, then there is another podcast out there that fits the bill. And that is Olly Lovell's Education Research Reading Room. He is a foil for Mr. Barton. That is the reason that I heard of them, because they do so many podcasts together. But he gives a different angle. He asks the right questions. He has amazing guests. He's an amazing host. But his angle is more to do with instructional coaching, which is a major topic at the moment in teaching and something I definitely want to introduce in my department. His podcast is great for geeks like myself who just really want to dig deep. 2-hour plus podcasts, really good knowledge, and you take away and apply it into your classroom. But then there's sometimes where you've had enough of all the knowledge, you're just driving home on a Friday, you just want to chill in your car, but listen to something teacher related. And that is where They Behave For Me fits the bill. This podcast is a combination of banter, jokes, random off-topic conversations, but two teachers who are passionate about what they do, and they are serious when they need to be. The chemistry from both hosts are magical, and that's what brings many of the jokes. There's a good balance between getting guests onto their podcasts and just their own discussions and conversations. And they really involve the listeners as well. So they want to hear questions that we have as listeners for them, and they answer them in their podcasts. And they're just really practical as well. They are answering questions that teachers are thinking about right now. And that's what makes this podcast special. But when the jokes have become too much, the random off-topic conversations is just a bit grating. There is a podcast where you just feel like you're round the table at a pub, just listening to some guys talking about teaching. And this is the Beyond Good podcast. And there are not many podcasts out there that make you want to go to the very beginning of their catalogue and listen to every single one in order till you get to the next one, and then are waiting eagerly for the next podcast. But this is, to me, the best podcast in teaching. Their passion, their experience really shines through, and they just care about being great teachers in the classroom, and you can really identify and really feel like you're going on a journey with them. Teaching has so many questions, but there are not always easy answers, and they really know that in this podcast. And it feels like every new podcast they release is a new step into the unknown, but they really want to get to the depth of the answer as best as they can. And I love that journey. The hosts have such experience, many years in teaching across different settings, and I really love that experience, and it shines through their podcast. But after all of the knowledge, all of the jokes, all of the sitting around in the table, you just need to go into your classroom the next day and deliver to the students. And there's not many podcasts that actually explain to you the nuts and bolts of how to do that. And this is where this podcast comes in. It's Barry Smith's education podcast. If you have not heard of Barry Smith, he's a co-founder of Michaela School. He was a head teacher of a charter school. He has done a lot of work with head teachers, turning around failing schools and helping them to improve. And he models to you exactly how to bring strategy straight into the classroom. Not all of what he says people agree with, and some of his techniques might cause a bit of friction for some people. But when you put that to one side and you take what you can from his podcast, for me, quite a lot of it, then it was really transformational for me of taking it straight into my classroom and giving the rationale to students as to why I'm bringing these strategies in and how to explain that rationale to them step by step. His most recent series from July 2024, where he gives you scripts of how to bring in things like slant or steps or shape All of those things really help me to be able to know what to say at the right time and then mold it to the way that I want to deliver it in the classroom. So from a practical point of view, there's no better podcast than Barry's. So there's my top 5 podcasts. If you know any other great ones, please let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely check them out.